Hey guys, it's Taylor. I am back today with a review of Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses. That's correct. I've heard that a lot of people have trouble saying that, so I know it's just not me. Hold on, I'm gonna go get my notes. Okay, so this is like the third book of hers that I've read. I started her other series, wasn't really a fan, got halfway through and just got bored, and then was recommended this series by my friend and then also my sister, and so I was lent a copy of the book. I do have to just say real quick, if I could turn it around the right way, that I love that at the beginning of the chapters they have like these little designs and anything. Anyways, on to the story. Okay, so to give like kind of just a general kind of idea of what this story is, it starts out with a girl. Her name is Feyre, and she lives with her dad and her two sisters. They're super poor, and so she pretty much provides everything for them. She like hunts and does everything, and she's actually the youngest, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And so they live in this world where they kind of are on like a big island, and the northern half is where all the Fae live, and then the bottom half is where all the humans live, because a long time ago the Fae had enslaved all the humans. They had like a big uprising, and then when they made a treaty, they were kind of like, Fae stay to the north, humans stay to the south, we're good to go, no worries. Well, so when Feyre's out hunting one day, she kills this wolf, and there had been rumors that there had been some like Fae activity, and this wolf was like really big, and she had an idea that there was like a possibility this wolf was Fae, but she was like, no, that's kind of ridiculous. And really like everything just pops off from there. So I really like this story because she's such a strong female character, her being young and like just providing for her family and stuff. And I'm a huge fan of like any supernatural, stories that have to do with fairies. I'm a big fairy person just because I feel like their range is a lot bigger than some other supernatural beings like vampires and werewolves and stuff. I feel like Fae has like such a big, difference of where you can go with it, and so you just kind of go from there. So I definitely recommend it. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait to get going on the second book, and Sarah just announced that right now this is a trilogy, but she's going to make this into a 6-book series, and I think there's a novella already out, and so I'm going to get to reading. And so if you don't want to be spoiled, don't keep watching, come back later so we can talk about it. Or if you want to be spoiled and just know what happens in the entire book before you read it, you can keep on watching. That's, do what you do. But until then, if you don't want spoilers, don't keep watching, okay? Alright, we're back, guys, and we're going to talk about this crazy book. So, Feyre lives with her punk little sisters, which really they're her older sisters, but she's the youngest, but she acts like the oldest, and her dad. Her mom has died and made her promise to take care of them. Her dad was pretty much like a swindler, and they used to be rich and now they're not, and they're bums and don't do anything, and she takes care of them. So she kills this wolf, right, out in the woods, and it ends up being a fairy. So this beast comes like knocking at her door like, a life for a life, either I can kill you now or you can come live with me. So she goes to live with him north of the wall, which, let me just look it up real quick, because there's a key, thank God, in the back, because Sarah, you just make it so difficult for us. Like, I don't know how to pronounce none of these words. Let's see what this is called. Prythian, that's the Fae realm, one of them. Anyways, okay, so she goes with him, and he's like a beast. And by the way, I was told that this is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast story. I'm not a big Disney person. I've seen Beauty and the Beast, like the new version once, still don't really get the story, whatever. So I really wasn't tracking any of like the undertones through this whole thing, other than he was a beast when he came to get her. So they you know, get to his court. And so Prythian is divided into 7 different courts. There's a court for each of the seasons, and then one for day, one for night, and one for dawn. I think that's wrong, but anyways, so there's 7 different courts. And so they're in the spring court, and everything's beautiful, and where she used to live down in the slums was like winter all the time, and it was a mess, which I thought was kind of funny. It was like winter near a wall. I was like, okay, Game of Thrones. But anyways, so she is very skeptical. Because one, I thought that the whole bargain was weird. I was like, if it's a life for a life, why do you want her to come live with you unless you're going to torture her? Which he swore up and down he wasn't going to. So you know him as this beast. So she gets this beautiful mansion that he lives in, and all this different other kind of stuff. And she gets put up in, like, you know, this nice room, and her hair washed and everything, and everything's great. But she stays skeptical. So she goes down to dinner, and there's like another fairy there, and you find out really quick that he's like the trickster one. He's really funny. I really liked him. I think you're supposed to not like him in the very beginning, but I liked him. He kind of picked at her and was kind of mean to her, but I thought it was pretty funny. His name is Lucian. Also, to mention, he looks like a person. He's not a beast, and he has this mask on. Well, then the beast is also turned into like a human form, and he has like a masquerade mask on too. Lucian, by the way, has like a fake eye and a big old scar, so we all know there was going to be a story behind that. So then they're all sitting there, he's messing with her, she's like, what do y'all want from me, being all sassy back and forth, no games are being played. You find out the beast that, you know, she made the deal with or whatever, his name is Tamlin. And so she's like, okay, they must be high fae. So I guess there's like the High Lord is the one that rules a specific court, and then there's high fae, kind of like high society, and then there's just like regular basic fae. I don't know really the whole difference or whatever. And so there's so many fae, it kind of reminded me of like demons in any of the Cassandra Clare books. Like they have names and like their characteristics are super specific, but there's like, you know, there's too many of them to ever really remember what is what. And I think that those type of fae are kind of treated like how demons are treated in Cassandra Clare books, is how I kind of felt. So I was kind of skeptical because other than like Lucian being like picking on her, they were nice to her, and I couldn't figure out, I was like, there has to be like some kind of end game. Like, why does he just want her to live here for forever? Like, but he was like still nice to her, and I just didn't get really what was going on. So then finally she just gets ballsy enough that she's like, well, what is going on here? Why do you got these masks on? Because even the servants, like the girl that helps her get ready in the morning, her name's Alice, like she even had one on. And they tell her that there was like this blight, which was pretty much like this magical sickness that had messed everybody up. And like everybody's magic was messed up, and they were all at this ball one night, a masquerade ball. And ever since that night, this blight messed up the magic, and now they're stuck in these masks. So she's like, over time starts to like bond with these people, you know, and she's like, no, I'm gonna try to help y'all figure out this, because then she starts worrying that this blight might cross the wall and affect her family, which I'm like, girl, your family don't care about you. Why are you worried about them? Because she's like, without me, they're gonna starve. And so she finds out that there's like this lesser fairy that if you catch it, it'll answer all your questions. And of course Lucian tells her how to do it, which was like a dick move because he put her in danger. And so she catches this fairy because she's a badass, and this fairy is like, just stick with the High Lord. And she's like, High Lord? She was like, oh, you didn't know Tamlin's the High Lord? So, which I'm just like, I don't know, I just kind of assumed he was, but Feyre didn't for some reason. So you find out that he's like the king of the spring court. So then comes this big magical kind of like spring celebration where Tamlin has to like, I guess like mate with someone so that the year and the spring is good, and then the magic, I don't know. And he's like, stay up in your room. Well, of course she doesn't know how to act right, and came downstairs, and then there's people dancing and stuff, and she goes out, which she's not even supposed to do that because there's fae from all over the place, and he's like, just wanted her to stay where she was. And she runs in to this guy, and the way that Sarah described through Feyre, she was like, He was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. I was like, I thought you were feeling Tamlin, but okay. And so you don't know what the deal is. There's these other fairies messing with her, and he tells them to just skedaddle, and they run, so you know he has to be some type of powerful. And then he goes about his way. But I was like, he'll be back. He'll be back. If I've read enough books, he'll be back. So she, you know, Lucian finds her, puts her back up in the tower. You know, supposedly Tamlin's like all sex crazed, which I was like, this is whatever. And ends up like getting upset because he could smell her and couldn't find her. I'm like, okay, werewolf, chill out. So that's all fine and dandy. Everybody's good. Now Tamlin and Feyre are like obsessed with each other and whatever. And so then they're starting to get really worried about this blight because all these different like horrible creatures and fairies are showing up, and he's like, it's getting worse. And she can tell she doesn't like know the full story, but we'll soon find out. So all of a sudden they're sitting there eating lunch, them just like, you know, messing around, picking on each other and stuff, and all of a sudden that guy from the ceremony that like saved her, she was like, he's the most beautiful man I've ever seen, shows up, and you find out real quick that he is no joke, and he is from the Night Court. Which, I mean, just like you, spring and night, I mean, you kind of are automatically going to assume like something's not right here. He's probably a bad guy. And so this whole time there's like this infamous her, which I love when a villain's a woman. Just love it. I'm all about it. So he just like busts up in there, and it's like, I'ma tell her what y'all are doing, and you Tamlin just need to give it up. And so you know that there's like this her that has been trying to do something with Tamlin, and Tamlin's not having it. Well, then of course this guy quickly finds out that Feyre's in the room. They're trying to like hide her, and he like does this thing that reminds me of like Tyler Posey from Teen Wolf, and like sticks them in the back of the head, and like it's like scrambling their brains or something. And he's like, I'ma tell her that Feyre is here, and it's gonna be a mess. You better bring your brooms, it's gonna be a mess. So Tamlin turns into a scaredy cat and just sends her away. And he's like, you gotta go back home, forget this treaty, forget whatever, you gotta go back home. And she goes. He sends her away and she goes. But when this character that from the Night Court, I call him Rhysand. I don't know how you pronounce it. I call him Rhysand. Rhysand was like, what's your name? And she just thought of this like random name of a girl from back home and didn't give him her real name. So she's like home and finds out that Tamlin had like glamored the entire family to like not know that she'd been taken, and like set them up, and now they're rich again. But then she quickly finds out that her oldest sister, like the glamour didn't work. And so they bond a little bit, which was good because her older sister was the one that was like a real asshole to her. And she's there for a little bit, and then finds out that the girl that she gave her the name to Rhysand, her whole family was like murdered and their house was burned down. And I just was like, should have seen that coming. So of course then she's like, I gotta go help him. And I'm like, what are you gonna do? So she finds one of those weirdos from the town that are like worship the fairies, which the longer the story goes on, the more I'm like, y'all are gonna be alright, just keep doing what y'all are doing. Finds her way somehow back to Prythian or whatever it's called, back to the Spring Court, and gets to the mansion, and like everything's destroyed. And the only person left there is Alice, and Alice is like, you foolish girl, which I'm just like, Alice, you're the true winner in this whole story. I don't care what anybody says, I love characters like that. And so she's like, you're so dumb. That was not, the treaty wasn't real, none of this was real. There's a curse on Tamlin that she put on him, that made it where the only way to break it, he had to make somebody, a human that hated fairies, that even was like willing to kill one of his own, fall in love with him. And she was like, and all you had to do was say I love you. And see, when she was riding away, when he sent her off, you know, he said it and she didn't say it back, which is like totally my MO. So I was like about it at the time, but then I was like, so you're telling me this whole thing could have just been over if she just would have said 3 little words to him, and the curse would have been broken, and he would have got all of his powers back, and the mask could have come off? Well, no. So Alice is like, they're under the mountain. Don't go, but if you're gonna go, that's where they're at. So they go, sorry, I'm trying to read my little thingies. So she goes and finds her under the mountain, which I'm just like, I don't know, I just thought that like all of that happened so quickly, but I was like, okay, whatever. So she gets there and everybody's being held captive, and this she, which is Amantha, like Samantha without an S. Anyways, this Amantha had somehow tricked all 7 High Lords into like letting her rule like all of Prythian or whatever it's called. And really she's like a general from some other Fey land over somewhere else. And so she's like, all right, little human girl, I'll let you go, or let everybody go and the curse go if you pass these 3 tests. And I'm just like, oh my Lord, here we go. And you're only halfway through the book, so you're like, this is gonna be a mess. So she's like, 1 test a month, which I'm like, this is gonna be the longest book ever. Or if you can figure out this riddle. I don't know about y'all, I figured out the riddle really quick. I thought that was super easy, but then I thought maybe it's too easy. I knew the answer was love. I was like, that's so simple, I don't get why she doesn't get that. So this girl does these 3 challenges. The first one, she like has to defeat this ugly worm thing. It was very Maze Runner. I just like was seeing so many different parallels between all these different like books and TV shows here recently, but I was loving it. It wasn't like obvious, I just liked it. So in the process, she like breaks her arm, and so Ryson comes and is like, I'll fix your arm, but you have to agree to be with me 1 week every month for the rest of your life, and I'll fix your arm. Because everybody knows she wouldn't have been able to finish if she didn't, the other 2 trials, if she didn't fix her arm. But I was like, okay, he obviously has a thing for her because he saved her back at that thing. He could have squished her brain up if he wanted to when he visited Springcourt, and he didn't. Then they had like taken that girl that she gave the false name and like tortured her, and he didn't mention that it was the wrong girl. So I was like, obviously he has a thing for Pharaoh, which why he wouldn't, I don't know. But so he fixes her arm, and then the process gives her this like cool tattoo with like an eye on her palm, and I'm like, okay, an eye is never good, but that has to mean something. I don't know if I'm just like too into Cassandra Clare and I'm like runes and all that stuff. I knew it meant something. So then the second trial, when it was like her and Lucian, which I'm like, poor Lucian, why does he, first he got his eye missing, now he keeps on getting beat with stuff, and he's just trying to help. And he's like one of my favorite, he's like my 2nd favorite character. I'm just like, what? Will he ever, you know, find love? I just, leave him alone, Sarah. Just leave Lucian alone. And so, of course, as we know, freaking Feyre is illiterate and never thought that it would be great to learn how to read for some reason. So the second challenge, she has to solve a riddle that she has to read, and she don't know how to read. And I'm just like, all that time you had sitting up in that palace while Lucian and Tamlin were just like riding around on their horses, and you couldn't have taught yourself how to read. So she goes to do these switches, and her hand kept burning, and then you, obviously everybody's thinking when you're reading it, this is Ryson trying to help her. Like every time she went to go do the wrong lever, he'd burn her hand through her little tattoo thing that's on her arm. So I was like, he is feeling her, or he has an ulterior motive, one of the two, because you got to keep your eyes open. So they make it through that. Lucian's fine. Only 1 trial left. Everything's good. Then, in between all this, Ryson will like bring her out every night, get her drunk on wine, paint her all up, have her in these gowns, which we all know that Pharaoh's not about. And that just like dulled her pretty much. So in the last trial, when she had to kill those 2 people, I thought for sure that was Alice and her 2 nephews. I was like, 2 boys and a woman, that's who that is. I was 100% sure of it. You couldn't have told me otherwise. So when it wasn't, I was very surprised. I was surprised when the last person was Tamlin, and the whole thing about his heart being stone didn't even catch on to that. I just thought they were trying to say he was heartless, and I was like, I feel you, me too, Tamlin. But so she kills him anyways because she knows his heart is stone, and then Amantha's like, tricked you because she's a fairy. And there's always a trick. There's always some kind of something. So she's like, yeah, I'll break the curse, but I didn't say when. Which I was thinking when she made that deal. I was like, first of all, you said something about leaving, but you never said anything about, like, whether you were leaving alive or dead, which that worried me. Then she never said when. I was just like, you're making a horrible deal. So I wasn't surprised by that. What did surprise me then was in like the last hour before she was about to get her head snapped off pretty much, that she was like, the answer to the riddle is love. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, honey. Like, where you been? So of course then she's like dies, but then she's like looking through Tamlin's eyes, and I'm like, something is weird, because like earlier in the book he was like speaking to her like through her mind, and now she can see through his eyes, and I'm like, there's something weird about this tattoo that like bonds them, kind of like the tattoos in the Fever series. So I'm like, all right, Ryden. Anyways, so then the curse is broken, and of course then he kills her and everything goes back to normal, and then but she's dead. And so then all the High Lords are like, okay, we will grant you life. And they like do some kind of seed of life or whatever and turn her into a High Fae. And then like the book is just over. And so I feel like, of course it's a series, so it like solves some things, but then it leaves questions. One, I feel like unless you're Clary and Jace, you don't end up with the person you end up with in the first book. So either she's not going to end up with Tamlin, or they're going to break up and get back together a whole bunch of different times. Is kind of what I'm thinking. Honestly, I'm not that into Tamlin. I'm never into the person you're supposed to be into. I never like the characters that I think like the writer wants you to like. Something's just wrong with my brain. Also, I'm really confused about like what makes you a High Fae, and like I've watched some reviews and other people are like, so can you become a not High Fae or become a High Fae for not? I don't know what the deal is. And then they say like this is something we've only granted to a couple people, talking about making her into a High Fae. So like another thing I watched on like what is it, Poland Books or whatever, Christine, she was like, so is she gonna meet somebody else that's kind of like her? And I was like, good point. I'm sure that'll come back up. So I don't know. Really, I just want to hear more about Rhysand, probably just because he's more complex. I want Lucian to like finally get a break, and honestly, like at this point, I'm kind of bored with Tamlin. But Feyre's kind of a badass, I like that, and obviously Amantha wasn't the big bad, so I'm excited to see what the big bad is going to be. But I would like to hear, I guess, like, do you like Tamlin? I don't like Tamlin necessarily. It's not that I don't like him. I just think he's boring. I'm just like, okay. I don't know. I don't know. I just think it's not as interesting, I guess. But I guess we'll see what happens, especially now that we're about to have 3 more books. But anyways, that's all for today. All that stuff, like the book, Goodreads, all my social media is going to be in the description. And I will see you next time. Don't forget to do what you do. Bye, guys.